Okay, well, I think we'll get started. Bang on 12 o'clock, and I know you're all busy people, so we'll get started on our lunchtime webinar. Kia ora koutou, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming along to our webinar on farm environment plans. Hopefully you've grabbed some lunch, probably a hot lunch would be good. I've got a lovely warm makatū pie here to have over my lunchtime. Supporting local and makatū, and you'll be able to eat while you're listening to us today. We're going to go for about half an hour today, and I hope you don't mind we're recording this webinar so that you can refer back to it or share it on to friends and family. Awesome. Okay, so just before we get started, I'd like you to just type in using the chat function at the bottom of your screen there, where you're from and what your interest is in farm environment plans today, just so we can see if we can cover off your questions and get a sense of who is listening today. So I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. Just double check that you're clicking on all panelists and attendees in the drop down box. Wet and windy in Hamilton today. Yes, same here in the Bay of Plenty. I think it's quite nice to be inside at lunchtime today. We've got others on board. I can see Brad's here. We've got Craig coming in from Otago. Kia ora, Craig, interested in how these are being rolled out across the country. Yep, different in different areas. Okay, hopefully you might have found the chat function. Okay, Alec from Rotorua, looking to see what the viable options are. Megan from Te Puke on a dairy farm, welcome Megan. Interested for your catchment group, awesome. Megan, great to hear. Paraiti catchment group and Paradise Valley catchment group represented. Welcome Brad from the avocado industry, New Zealand avocados. Yes, future compliance is going to be interesting. And enhancing sustainability across this industry, very important. Kia ora, Tim from Opotiki. Yes, and I think, Tim, you will definitely hear some words of wisdom from Jared. Kia ora, David from Urutara Estuary Managers up near Katikati and Bay Conservation Alliance. Interested from a number of angles. And also an avocado orchardist. Great, David. So hopefully we can help you out today. Excellent. Okay, guys. So we'll get started. So I just want to introduce, our outline for today. So you'll see the outline hopefully come up on your screen there. Please let me know if you're not seeing it presented. We're going to cover off a variety of things, just introduce New Zealand Landcare Trust, and also a bit about the history of farm environment planning, what an environment plan is, a little bit of information about the national requirement, and it's great to see we've got some people from Bay of Plenty Regional Council who may be able to share some of the regional requirements potentially that may come up. And we've got the lovely Jared Watson here from Waiotahi. Kia ora, Jared, and Jared's going to give us a farmer perspective during our presentation today as well. I've got a colleague here, Joe, who is actually helping me with this presentation and will share a few things on our chat function today. So just a bit about our team. So in New Zealand Landcare Trust, we have 12 members in a very small team, and it's spread out across New Zealand, 7 regional coordinators and 5 based in the Hamilton head office. Our mission is sustainable land and water management through community involvement. I'm the Bay of Plenty regional coordinator, and I have been working with catchment groups and community groups on sustainable land and water management projects. We have a cross-section of trustees from the production, recreation, Māori business and environmental protection sectors. So you can imagine the robust discussion that happens around the table, all focused on sustainable land and water management through New Zealand Landcare Trust. So we're very lucky to have such a wide spread of trustees. We are an independent charitable trust, so we don't have a regulatory hat. We can't tell you what to do. Rather, we support and give advice to farmers and growers. Okay, so we'll get started on the crux of our presentation, that is farm environment plans. So clearly farm environment plans are not new. They've been around for some time in some form or another since the 1970s, as you can see from this diagram. However, the terminology has changed somewhat from soil conservation plans, nutrient management budgets, and more recently farm environment plans. However, I notice in the new Action for Healthy Waterways that has come out through central government, they go back to the term farm plan. So the definition of a farm environment plan generally is it is an environmental risk management tool that helps farmers and landowners recognise on-farm and environmental risks, and then sets out a program of action to manage those risks. So it's a living document with actions that need updating and refining over time. And I think Jared will give us few good examples of that. So what's in a farm environment plan? So farm environment plans are based on a good farm map, or several maps, I can imagine, that show farm boundaries, paddocks, waterways, critical source areas, winter grazing paddocks, those sorts of things, and also shows landforms such as hill country, flats, gorges, valleys, that sort of thing. Similar land types are grouped into land management units, which are then ranked on a standard rating framework showing risk levels. Farm environment plans also include time-bound plans to mitigate the environmental risks indicated in the maps and in the farm environment plans. You can get additional plans done, such as nitrogen surplus plans, OLSON-P, biodiversity or greenhouse gas plans that will wrap around your essential plan and help with mitigating risk. So several people can provide a farm environment plan, but generally the government is suggesting now that it needs to be by a certified farm environment planner approved by the Minister for the Environment and the Minister for Agriculture. Currently though, central government has said that they will accept industry-led farm environment plans, such as those provided by Fonterra, Beef and Lamb and Dairy NZ. Dairy Industry New Zealand. I just want to point out that there are also agri-nutrient companies and environmental consultants, such as those on the slide there, that can do your farm environment plans as well. And there's some other tools available, such as the Dairy NZ EnviroWalk tool, which is a great start a tool that can help you identify some of the risk factors across your farm, and then some management tools to manage those risks. So benefits of an environment plan, and I think Jared will cover off quite a few of these. Ultimately, you can record your progress towards achieving good farming practice principles, and that's a huge benefit for farm planning. It helps identify environmental risks and prioritise actions, so it doesn't feel so daunting. You're able to actually see which are your big ones and where to start. It helps to tell the story of the actions of farmers at a local level. at a catchment level, but also helps for you to compete on a global scale too, as it shows how New Zealand is building confidence in animal welfare and environmental and production systems. It's a plan is always a good thing, so it can be part of your business plan anyway, as an addition, and soon by 2025 it will be a requirement. So you may have heard with central government announcements that by 2025 all farms will need a farm plan with a freshwater module. So fortunately in the Bay of Plenty we don't have any existing requirements for farm environment plans like in some areas such as Hawke's Bay and Waikato. However, by 2025 we will need those farm plans thanks to the central government direction. And those plans will need to include a farm map, and they need to identify features and risk assessments and a schedule of actions. So there is time, but not much. So we've got 5 years really up our sleeves. As I mentioned before, existing industry plans will be recognised at this stage, but things are changing. It's a moving feast, and I imagine our Bay of Plenty Regional Council staff attending today, yeah, they're working through what standards and those plans will look like, and the role that Regional Council will play. I just want to point out that in the Rotorua Lake catchment under Plan Change 10, owners of properties over 40 hectares or under 40 hectares that are intensive farming will need or do need a resource consent. So this isn't the same as a farm environment plan, but you will potentially need a nutrient management plan if you're in the Rotorua catchment. So I suggest if you haven't got your head around that yet, it's a good opportunity to contact your local Rotorua Regional Council office, have a chat to the land management officers about that, and just get an understanding of what that means. And there is funding available to support Rotorua farmers through that process. Okay. So just what is the freshwater module of a farm plan? So it's a little vague at the moment, but at this stage it has to identify and assess the risk of contaminant losses from the farm with consequent impacts on freshwater ecosystem health associated with particular farm activities. So basically really looking into the risks that your farming practice may have, or erosion, irrigation, stock management, that sort of thing, on freshwater in particular in and around your farm. These will need to be audited, checked and reported on. So, so this is the central government authorisation at this stage. Alrighty. So I'm going to pass it over now to Jared Watson. So welcome, Jared. Jared is Jared and his wife Sue are the 4th generation of dairy farmers on their property, and you can see them here with the 5th generation coming through at their sons. Jared is chair of the Waitahi Water Care Group, and Waitahi is one of Fonterra's 50 catchments, so all 16 dairy farmers in the catchment have completed farm environment plans. Jared is going to give us some insight into why they chose to do a farm environment plan, how the process went and what the outcomes have been. Thank you, Jared. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Janie. Yeah, kia ora everyone. Thanks for joining today and having this conversation about farm environment plans. I guess if I go back to where it began for us with environment plans, in 2017, Sue and I were lucky enough to win, well, fortunate enough to win the Bay of Plenty Farm Environment Awards. And with funding from the Regional Council, they put us through what was called back then the milk plan. So there was an independent auditor that came in and put our business through the milk plan. So that really, and that was quite an involved process. It used overseer, it ran our business through the model Red Sky, to see if we were viable for a start. And it started pointing to some really good numbers on the way we were farming. We were already farming a long way down the track of being very sustainable with our inputs. So, and in that sort of 12 months, we were also faced with a fairly significant impact to our small catchment. As Janie said, there was only 16 dairy farms in the catchment, and at the bottom of our catchment we have a historical local pippy bed. Ahuriri, I think is the name of the pippy bed, or at the Waitahi pippy bed. Anyway, we were starting to see some really significant E. coli numbers through the testing regime. It was really only over the summer months, and Toy Health actually closed the pippy beds. They were becoming just too high to be, or they were becoming a very health risk. So that was really the start of, although we were already having conversations, the Waitahi Water Care Group. So this was a group formed by sort of 5 or 6 pretty motivated farmers. We really didn't like the fact that we were possibly contributing to these high E. coli levels in the pippy bed. So we engaged with the regional council, and we came up with a plan, and we thought the way we were going to do this, we were going to, as Matt Damon says, I don't know if you've seen the movie Mars, we were going to science the shit out of it. So we embarked on this really regimented testing regime through the whole catchment. I think we're up to 26 sites where we take water samples. We were actually bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. I think now we're down to, we've had the budget pulled back a bit, so we're now down to monthly testing. But as we got started on this, Fonterra was always wanting to be part of this conversation with us. They saw, so we formed the Waitahi Water Care Group, and then we made it we also made it an incorporated society so we could attract funding, although we haven't really achieved much of that as yet. So regional council put money towards carrying out a farm environment plan on all the dairy farms in the catchment, which was really good, but they were kind of under-resourced in the way of actual land managers to be able to carry them out. So that's when Fonterra came in and provided one of their sustainable land managers to produce a farm environment plan on each dairy farm in the catchment. So using the Tiaki farm environment plan, we all had one of these carried out, and I think it was in 2018 the first ones were done. And we've found since all farms have carried out this, and we had this conversation just the other day, that how important and relevant these plans are. Well, we've all found them incredibly relevant and incredibly important way to manage the risk. It's like I've said to several people, it's like when you start, it's like an elephant, and it's a really big meal to try and sit down and eat in one go. But once you have a farm environment plan, you can categorize them, and they're really clearly categorized into a high, moderate, or low risk. So that makes it immediately apparent where you need to tackle first, and it really is around those critical source points. So, and mainly as all dairy farmers know, it's mainly around the cow shed, around the dairy shed itself. So you start there and you work out from there. And what it also enables you to do is to create a budget around the works that you've categorized them into. And the Tiaki plan lists them into different categories of, so we have land, so we have, they're into effluent storage, standoff areas. Oh, I'm having trouble reading them, sorry. But it breaks it down into areas where you know where you need to start with those critical source points. You probably can see a few photos coming up of the farm in front of you. So this, I mean, my plan ends up, it's fallen apart. It's become such a working document that becomes a really important point of it, because although the farm owner basically holds on to it, I really encourage you to leave it so the staff can have access to, because there's so many jobs in the plan that there's like anything in farming, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. And if you leave it with your staff and you sow the seed of the work that sort of needs to be done and how to approach it, a lot of the time those ideas are actually solved by staff, because you know they're part of the daily management of your farm. So I really recommend you really engage with staff with your farm environment plan.
All right, there's just been a question come through around electronic versions of your plan. So do you have an electronic version as well?
No, we don't. So the plan we've got is the 2018. So it's actually, the plan we've got is right in the infant stages as the plan was developed, and we need to upgrade all our plans again. The problem we're having is because now the requirement and all these people are now coming on wanting plans, we're having a really hard time getting them actually audited and verified and updated. So getting someone in to come in and do that. So, but what we do now is, because of the electronic version, now our plan sits in the electronic version, but not with us, we don't have it. But what you can do is you can, as you do work on your plan, you can take photos of the upgrade you've done, which is basically what we do, and we upload them to the Sustainable Land Manager, and he attaches them to our file.
Thanks, Jared. I'll let you carry on.
Yeah. So where was I up to? So yeah, I guess so. Yeah, going forward. So then so the Waitei Water Care Group everyone's had these farm environment plans done on their farm, and the conversation the other day was they are incredibly relevant, and to a lot of farm owners they don't actually get them out that often. It enables you just to prioritise the work, and that's really important for the budgets for the next 12 months on, you know, exactly, you know, what you can carry out. So we're starting, yeah, so as the other good thing with, so they're really important in the sense of also attracting funding. So when you get your farm environment plan done on your farm, there becomes a whole lot of work that you'd actually really like to do on farm, and it really is just budget permitting. But I certainly recommend you putting all your work in there that you can see that you're wanting to do in the next 10 years, because if it is in your plan, the Bay, I can speak only for the region, Bay of Plenty Regional Council. If it's in your plan, the likelihood of you attracting funding to help carry out the work, meaning mitigating work, they'll certainly support it if it is in a farm environment plan. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jared. So I've just got a couple of slides from your plan, actually, Jared, that I pulled out from the electronic version. So yes, Nick Doney from Fonterra did have the electronic version of your plan.
Yep.
And you've been sending him and updating the photos. Is that right, Jared?
Yeah, that's how we do it, yeah.
We talked about the link to the risk assessment, I suppose. Jared, would you be able to talk us through that on this slide here?
So the risk assessment comes in, and it's on especially land that you're looking at. So they look at slope primarily. So it just really becomes the management of that type of land. So the area we're looking at there, we've since identified 13 hectares of this. This is sort of the back of our property. It was a 66 hectare piece, and out of that, I think we fenced off 24 hectares. And now we're going to subsequently fence off another 13 hectares. And of that 13 hectares, the majority, all of it will be planted into a native species matrix as a nurse species, and made up of 10 different varieties, from Manuka to Karnika to whitey woods to cabbage trees, all those sorts of pioneering species matrix. And in the following 2 and 3 years, as we can source the native trees for wood, we'll go in and interplant them at probably between 800 and 500 stems per hectare. So looking long term, we possibly will get income from that area. Not all of it. Of the 13 hectares, I think there's possibly only maybe 8 hectares of fertile, good growing, that's ideal for taking off timber in the future. You know, when you're getting old, when you start saying someone else will get benefit from it, because we're predominantly looking at native species rather than pines. It's very steep country, so or where we're going to plant the woods isn't, but where we're retiring is very steep. So the farm environment plan identified those areas of prone to erosion, sediment runoff if that happens. And so, yeah, that's how we're sort of approaching those areas. So
Thanks,
this area.
Sorry.
Yeah,
yep.
sorry.
Carry on. Sorry.
So this area here is back in the valley floor, and it was an area you can, in the photo on the left, you can see a cow race going to the right of it. So this was just a riparian fence to stop or reduce the nutrient runoff into the wetland below it. As you can see below it there, that's a plant called Glyceria, and the reason it's so green is it's just absorbing all the nitrogen that's actually running off into that area there. In the future, we're hoping to identify that as a wetland project. It's quite big, it's probably a hectare and a bit, and we'd love to be able to carry out some sort of wetland structure into that long term.
Great, Jared. And I've just got one more slide here that you might want to speak to.
Yeah, so this is back up in the back of the property again, and this was all when we first purchased the property. There was no fences anywhere. I think the farm was fenced into 2 paddocks basically. So we kind of embarked on it early on to fence all the streams off, and we started out with having pretty good setbacks up in there, although now we're even actually looking at greater setbacks. We've found it's debatable on the setback. Like we sort of, because the streams weren't fenced originally, it was always a struggle coming, you know, as a farmer, and that you kind of trying to hold on as much farm grazable land as you can. But you're better off setting your setbacks further back, I feel, and the maintenance of the ground, of the area, becomes easier because you're not having stock getting into wallows. You've got a decent riparian area margin to plant into. If you make them too narrow, the riparian itself is quite hard to fill because you'll get slumping of those plants into the stream bed anyway. So you're better off going another metre. So now we're just doing one at the moment. We're out at 5 metres.
Great, thank you, Jared. Okay, so we've got a few minutes now for questions. One of the questions that came through, Jared, already is around your map. So how useful have you found the map part of your farm environment plan? And do you redraw it each year based on different paddock use or changes?
The map is, well, the map is the map. So you have this idea of what you want to do in an area. So you tend to go forward. It's not like you're going back to redraw it. It's really exciting. They become so motivating, these areas that you've put up your riparian fence. If it's a waterway you're trying to stop as a critical source or stop runoff into, and all of a sudden that area becomes the motivation to do more. And that's probably why if I can give you any advice, is put as much in your farm environment plan as you can, so you can just keep rolling with it. You can only spend as much as you've got to spend in 1 year. So yeah, just keep it. You'll find it will just evolve over time. Anyway, yeah.
Thanks, Jared. I've just got a quick question for you as well, because I know we've got a few people here from catchment groups. How has it worked, Jared? How has the farm environment plan process worked as a catchment group?
It's interesting talking with the other farmers in the catchment group. It depends on the motivation of the farmer. I've found once they have the farm environment plan, they tend to work. Everyone wants to mitigate, like work with the high risk issues first. So there's a little bit of and they're normally the most expensive. So they're around the cowshed. They're the ones that we want everyone to do, and most people have in our catchment are addressing those issues. The good thing is they've got a plan to go forward. As a catchment group, we probably, like this forum here, I'm probably talking to the engaged, preaching to the converted, as they say. We've got a percentage in our group that still aren't really engaged, and they will, now they're going to become, like by 2025, they'll become mandatory to have even though we've got them in our catchment, how much they're being used and addressed and revisited yearly, that's debatable. We're sort of trying, we're just, all we want to do, and everyone on this that can watch this, you will become a leader. You know, you sort of got to lead by example, and hopefully we've got so many of the community now wanting to get on board, and these are people outside the dairy industry and wanting to be involved. So the farm environment plans, they do motivate the catchment as a whole, although as the industry, yeah, we're still waiting for a few people to get started on them, but it's okay. We just keep going.
Jared, we've got a few questions that have come up. So one from David Peters: do landowners need to coordinate farm environment plans on boundary areas? So I'm thinking, I suppose, working with neighbours. Is that what you mean, David? Hoping that's what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, to a degree, if you can form a relationship with your neighbour, and that's how you get the relationship you've got with your neighbour. I've got a neighbour who's probably one of the most unengaged of the catchment, so I don't really. We have a boundary, it's on a floodplain, it's pretty easy. We just have a 2-wire electric fence on it, and I kind of keep doing, I do actually tend to do a bit more work down that end, so hopefully you can start seeing some positives. You sort of don't, I don't know if you need to, if it depends on your, I guess it depends on your catchment and the significance of the sort of work you're going to be doing on your side of the boundary and how it'll affect them. If you've got good setbacks, not planting into the stream, so you're not sort of inhibiting flow of the stream, you're reducing sediment or slumping and all of that, it's only good.
Thanks, Jared. Another question here from Nadine. So where did you get your support from for your farm environment plan over time, so over the last couple of years?
So I mean, we've got a really good, our whole catchment has a really good relationship with the regional council, with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. It's just been you know, like you embark on these things and historically it's always been the regional councils kind of stood behind farmers and sort of almost tried to push them along a little bit. Well, I haven't found that with this whole process. I've found they've almost been right beside us. And that's the beauty of this, getting engaged with these farm environment plans, is that it just becomes this collaboration with community, the industry, and the regional council. We're all on this learning journey together about solving the problems. You know, we're faced with a problem, especially in this catchment, it's E. coli, but we're probably finding out it's more sediment. Sediment really is the elephant. So as we go forward, that'll just get better. Hopefully we can actually engage more community, because this thing just becomes self sort of motivating, really.
Yeah. Yep, great. Tim Senior from Opotiki has just added that the map is really useful because it shows all the fencing done, not done, the effluent areas, etc., but also shows all the high risk items. And I imagine, Tim, that really helps farmers and regional council support on the priority areas. And I get the feeling from you, Jared, it almost takes the brain work out of it. It's all done there. You know what's going to happen over the next 3 years, so you can just work on doing it. Okay, so a couple more questions here. Megan, yes, we can provide the links for this, unless you can copy them down from the chat there at the moment. I can provide them to you. How do you feel your farm environment plan fits in with the new proposed national action for waterways, Jared?
Yeah, well, we're already a long way to achieving the targets that they're putting in front of us. So I think in the water policy, the new freshwater policy, is a 3 metre setback. So we're already looking now at doing 5 metre setbacks. And on our river, I think we're already averaging 10 metre setbacks. It'll become interesting. We have standoff pads, loafing pads, and we probably stand cows off. So we have sacrifice paddocks. So those sorts of criteria, meeting those sorts of criteria will become interesting. Not interesting, they'll just become a bit more of a conscious. Well, I actually really like this. There's a definitive number that you have to achieve, and I think that's where they've come from with this, because we can't kind of leave it up. It's a bit like COVID, you know, we can't actually leave it up to people to do the right thing. There has to be solid numbers on there attached to this, so people know. Otherwise we do get these people thinking they're doing the right thing, but they're not actually achieving much by giving it 0.5 metre, 1 metre setback. You know, so I think it's good. What I've seen, it's great.
Jared, we just had a message here from Jess. Sorry, I'll just find that to say that how contagious these projects can be, and so that, let me just find the wording here. So motivation seems to be contagious. Thank you, Jess. Growing within the catchment group and spreading to neighbouring catchments too. And I think you're absolutely right, Jess. It's about farmers talking to farmers, and I think, Jared, doing things on your boundary can obviously have that impact of, oh, you know, looking over the fence and seeing what are you doing that for, Jared? You know. Yep. And I think Nadine's pointed that out as well. If you've got a wetland that goes across 2 boundaries, that can be a really good example on how you can work together. And I'm sure Regional Council would be right across that with their funding and support and advice.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions here. Last questions, I think, Jared, from Karen around biodiversity values. Was there any particular biodiversity values identified in your farm environment plan?
So we haven't actually, because we haven't done the upgrade into the updated farm environment plan, there isn't in mine, although we've got this special little project that is, I'm a neighbour with. I boundary the Waitei Parish Scenic Reserve, parts of 380 hectare native reserve. So as part of, it will be entered into our farm, it will be attached to our farm environment plan shortly. There's been a whole lot of predator trapping on our boundary line, and they have access through our property into that native bush. So they're having a big push in that to become predator free, and that will become a kiwi, more of a kiwi sanctuary. There's already kiwi in there, but we're hoping to get it predator free so we can really give the kiwis a great start. What I'm seeing just visually from the riparians and this planting that we're going to embark on, they just become massive biodiversity areas, and it's just all good. We're gonna put have seed islands, so birds can harvest seed from these trees we're going to plant, and they'll just proliferate all over the farm. So we'll end up with great seed sources of all variety of native species.
Hey, thanks so much, Jared, for your presentation and your kōrero today. It's been really fantastic. I just wanted to ask Charles Harley from Bay of Plenty Regional Council if he wants to add anything in here, Charles.
Right, thank you, and hopefully everyone can hear me. So what we've done alongside the group is we've just looked for opportunities to work alongside the group and the other industries involved. We've had Dairy NZ, Fonterra, and we've all kind of worked collaboratively together to try and support Jared and his care group. And where we can, we have, like Fonterra have stepped up and they've produced the FEPs. All the farmers have agreed for the regional council to have a copy of that farm environmental plan, and we've been able to have a read of those plans and then go out with farmers and have a look around the farm and just give them some suggestions and offer areas where we believe they could make improvements, and where we can apply funding to support those works. There's not everything that we can fund. I mean, when it comes to infrastructure and upgrades like that, that's the landowner's responsibility, but anything else that we can work with them to fund, we will. And what's happened with these plans is that they've kind of built, and they're a growing document, they're a live document, they do change. When they first came out, there was no biodiversity, that wasn't kind of listed as one of the objectives, but we've gone back to Fonterra and said, hey, look, especially in Waitahi, there's lots of high value biodiversity sites. Can we get them listed? So we've provided the information to Fonterra, and they're slowly getting that into the plans as well. So we're kind of growing the plans as we see we can. And they're a starting document. Sometimes there's things that you don't pick up the first time round, so they're added in later. So yeah, it's a live document. It's a really good starting point. It's a great conversation, starter and things like that. And for us, we've been able to, instead of having to go and write a plan per farm, we can base our funding on the objectives which are met out within those plans. So they're really good in that respect. So for us, it's been a great, really good project where it's been across sector, and everyone seems to be working really well towards it.
Thanks, Charles. And I know that there's some discussions, Brad will know a bit about these as well, around some pan-sector style farm environment plan for the Bay of Plenty in particular, where you may have, multiple, diverse actions on your farm. You might have some avocados, some kiwi fruit, some dairy, and how do you ensure that that's all across, all brought together in one plan. So no news yet, but fingers crossed that's something Regional Council will get their head across, and the industry bodies. Okay, well, I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jared, for coming along and speaking with us today. And thank you to all the attendees that have been here. I just want to finish with this last slide here. Second to last slide, sorry. Farm IQ did a survey earlier in the year of farmers around farm environment plans, and of the 54% that don't have a farm environment plan in New Zealand, 49% of them said they don't have one simply because they don't know where to start. So I'm really hoping that that you have now got a starting point, or at least a little bit more information from today's webinar to get you started. And last but not least, if you want to get started or get more information, please refer to these websites or contact people, and feel free to contact me if you need some further information, or if you have any other questions for Jared. I'm sure Jared won't mind. On our website, we also have quite a bit of information around the good management practices that are talked about in farm environment plans. And actually, there was something come up in the chat there, a link there to the good management practice guidelines for healthy water. So that is a great link as well if you're looking at developing and looking into your farm environment plan GMPs. Okay, I think we're gonna, Joe's just put that up there as useful, good farming practice resource on the Federated Farmers website. Any closing comments, Jared?
No, if you haven't got one, get one and you'll be away laughing.
Awesome, awesome, perfect. Okay, kia ora everybody. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.